What's going on, animators? Aaron here with 6 quick tips for getting more appeal in your hand poses. One of the first things you want to look out for is something I call rake hand, and that's when basically the gaps between all the fingers are all the same size, an even amount, and the hand just kind of looks like a rake or a fork. Instead, I like to find ways to group the fingers, usually in groups of 2 or 3. Maybe you have one that's sort of out on its own that's highlighted in some way, while the rest form a larger shape and sort of simplifies the form. You see this a lot in 2D animation if you look at like old milk card drawings. This is a technique that they utilize a lot, and it can go a long way in adding appeal to your shapes and making them more graphic. Another thing I try to look out for is having a lot of parallel lines between the fingers. By default, a lot of rigs will have just very straight parallel gaps between the fingers with a lot of light coming through. Instead, I like to find ways to converge the fingers slightly so those lines aren't exactly parallel, they're actually converging. This closes a little bit of the daylight between the fingers and makes for simpler, cleaner silhouettes. It can also help with directionality and overall just adds a little more appeal to your shapes and feels more natural. I see this a lot of times in fist as well, where you have very parallel lines between the knuckles, and these gaps actually make it feel like the fist is less tense. So I find by converging those knuckles just slightly, you get a little more sense of squeezing and pressing going on between the fingers as if the meat is actually touching up against each other, and overall it's just more appealing. While we're talking about fists, another thing you want to look out for are knuckles that are perfectly straight in a line. This is something you see in CG rigs a lot. By default, the knuckles are sometimes just in a perfect little row, and this feels pretty unnatural. So if you look at your actual hand, you'll see that there's quite a bit of curvature to the line of the knuckles. If you can introduce some of this curvature, it goes a long way in making the hand just look a little more natural. This is something to look out for in open hand poses as well. Having these knuckles in a perfectly straight line just feels really CG and is not very appealing at all. So if you can introduce that curvature again down the knuckle line, it'll just give your characters a lot more of a feel of naturalism and flow through the hand poses. Another thing I look for the opportunity to do as much as possible is continue the line of action that I've introduced down the arm all the way out through the fingertips. And this isn't the case in every pose, but when possible, it can really go a long way in making your poses feel cohesive and give a sense of directionality as well. Another thing to look out for is avoiding having the palm or the back of the hand facing directly at camera. I find what this does is it makes the hand seem very large and it kind of draws a lot of attention to itself. It's usually not that appealing. I find that if I can roll it away just slightly from the camera so I have a little bit of perspective, it tends to look a little more natural, especially in a pose where you don't want the focus to be on the hands. Say the arms are just hanging down at the character's side. The final tip I want to discuss has to do with finding opportunities for the character to interact either with the prop or with an environment in a way that opens up possibilities for way more things that the hand can do. So we don't find ourselves falling back on a couple of cliche gestures while the character is talking with their hands per se. The hand is actually capable of doing a lot of things. You can get creative with how it's interacting with its environment, with these props, and come up with some really unique and specific hand choices.